Hi everyone, how's it going? If you're like me, you like to tinker and play around the VMs and VM networks and that sort of thing, you may have come across a deal for Avast SecureLine VPN, which is this guy here. It was about $15 or $20 for a couple of years of service, which is pretty cool. But they only give you a Windows and Mac client, and they have no documentation about how to install or use their VPN services on a different client or different service. So I figured out something on their menu. In their options, they let you specify VPN protocols. They have WireGuard, Mimic, and OpenVPN. And what's cool about OpenVPN is they issue SSL certificates to your installation that you can actually take and use on different services. The WireGuard and Mimic setups use different they use authentication, so they basically beam out to a server every time you connect and come back with a different credential. Whereas the OpenVPN credentials, from what I can see, are static. How do we get these? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to connect to Melbourne VPN. I'm in Sydney, Australia, so this is relatively quick for me. So I'm connected, we're all good, hunky dory. IP is set and everything. What I found is if you actually run Process Explorer and you find the OpenVPN process and go Properties, you can actually get the launch arguments for the OpenVPN client itself. So if I just open up a notepad, I've copied that to my clipboard already. I open up a notepad and just paste that. I've already, it's one big line, but I've just quickly shortened it down. But you can see a bunch of launch options here. So here's the OpenVPN executable. Here's the configuration file with the OpenVPN file. Here's the server IP, port, and protocol. Here's the user password credentials, the CA certificate, the public certificate, the private certificate, and a few other settings. We're just going to run through these options one by one. We can get rid of Process Explorer real quick. Just going to run through the options one by one. So config is client.ipapi.opn, whatever, in this program data folder. So if we go to that folder, which is here, I'll just open this OpenVPN file. I'm just going to copy everything out of this because we're going to need a bunch of these settings to get it working right. So I'm going to paste those here. We can see that we got the server credentials, we can the server login details, and a bunch of other things that we just went through. For this video, I'm going to set it up on OPNsense. I have a OPNsense with a VLAN in a VM. So this is just a virtualized router that's running inside my LAN, which is then spitting out to another VLAN. And I want that VLAN to be a VPN network for other VMs to connect to. So if we do some quick setup, we go to System, Trust, Authorities. So first thing we're going to do is going to create the CA certificate that they provide. So we're going to go Import an existing certificate authority. I'm going to name it Avast CA. As you can see, I've already done this. And we're going to go to that file, and we're just going to find the CA cert. I'm just going to copy everything in that file and just paste it in here. Remove any white spaces, blah, blah, blah. Cool. If we go to revocation, you can see the revocation authority is already generated. And if I click on the info, I'm not going to. If I click on the info, it will give us all the stuff that we need to know if we were to dig and poke and prod. Next, we're going to add the public and private key. Pretty straightforward as well. Just going to go add import an existing certificate. First thing we're going to open is the public key. So cert, it's the --cert flag. So it turns out to be cert.pem. I'm going to open that file, copy that one, paste it in here. And the next one is the private key, which is --key, and that's private.pem. I'm going to copy that one, paste that in here, remove any white spaces, by the way. And I'm going to call this this is Melbourne, so I'm going to call it Melbourne Cert, and save that one. Next, we're going to go create a VPN instance. So if we go VPN, open VPN, of course. Now, they have two ways you can do this. You can do it the new instances way. I tried this a few times. I couldn't get it working. I'm not sure why. But the legacy version, which is still there, worked fine for me. So if we go to Clients, Legacy, Create New VPN, I'm going to call this Avast Melb. And now we can check now we can go through each options. So server mode, peer-to-peer SLR, there's two options here. Usually if they don't specify it, which they don't in this scenario, it's going to be the default option 0, which is SSL TLS. Protocol, we can check in the launch arguments here as they have UDP. That's already set. Device mode, that would be from the config file that we grabbed as well. So device and then ton. So I'm going to leave that on ton. Interface, I'm going to set this to my WAN interface. Remote server. So we're going to go to the launch options. I'm going to grab that server IP. And I'm going to paste that in here. And the port was 553, not 555, 553. If you have multiple hosts in the launch options, you can add them. And you just got to check if they select at random or go through sequentially. So if it doesn't specify random, you don't need to tick that box. If it does, tick that box. Proxy host or address and proxy port and blah blah and proxy authentication options. I'm ignoring this because I'm not running this through another proxy. There's no point. Local port, that's if you want to bind it. They specify in here no bind. So I'm not going to bind it. I'm going to remove that option actually. I'm going to remove this. I'm going to remove everything that we've set. So I'm going to remove that as well. Okay, renegotiation. And they set that to 0 in this scenario. So I'm going to set renegotiation time to 0. Now we're at the crypto settings. TLS authentication. Most OpenVPN setups use a TLS key as well. In this case, they're not passing one through. They're saying the TLS cert is on the server. So I'm going to select disabled. The certificate authority, mine by default, because I've only got one CA cert installed, it's defaulting to that one. If you have multiple, just select the one you created. And the client certificate is the public and private key we added as well. So I'm going to click MELB cert. Encryption algorithm. This guy is deprecated. OpenVPN does ignore it, but they do specify one here. Potentially they could be using an older OpenVPN setup or something like that. So I'm going to actually specify that. So they chose AES256 CBC. So I'm going to pass that through. And for digest, they didn't specify digest in the config file or the launch options. So I'm going to leave that as is as SHA-1. The tunnel settings, I didn't need to modify these to get it to work. You may need to, depending on your setup and what you're going to do. The same with the route stuff. In the advanced options, this is where this stuff comes in. So we've set renegotiation, compress. We have to set, so there's a compression flag here. Here these guys set compress alone. So there's a bunch of compression options, but this one is just called compress. So I'm choosing that one. I'm going to remove compress from here. Okay, and from what I found, the Win32 junk can get removed because that's Windows. DHCP can get removed because that doesn't work. I think that's Windows specific as well. And the rest, that anything that we basically didn't set, we can just copy from this config into here. And by default, I'm going to set the verbosity level to 4. They actually set it to 3, but I'm going to set it to 4, just because it gives you a little bit extra info if you're coming across an issue. 5 and onwards, it just kind of spits out like the raw packet data and just a bunch of garbage that makes it way too hard to look through. So I'm going to set it to 4, but we'll come back in here and set it to 1 after we're done. And one thing we did just miss, I realized, is a username and password. In the launch options, they specify --auth user pass, and it's just this file called auth. So if I go back to that folder, there's an auth file here. I'm going to open that with Notepad, and that's got the username and password. So I'm just going to copy and paste those into the username and password field, like so. And that should be good to go. So I'm going to save that one. It created with no errors. That's cool. And we go to connection status. It's already up and connected. It's given us an IP address. We've got traffic going through. Obviously, I haven't assigned this to an interface yet and created the NAT for it, but that's okay. If we go to the log file, we will see that there's like a bunch of just stuff in here, and some you might see it's like saying disconnected, connected. That I believe is completely normal, and that those logs actually stop once you turn off the verbosity level. So now that we know the VPN's connecting, there's no crazy errors coming out. I'm going to go back into the VPN configuration and just set it to level 1. And basically at level 1, it will only scream if there's something wrong or something needs attention. So that's it. That's pretty much it. One thing to note, if you're going to switch regions or something, you switch your region, go to, say I'm going to go Perth, and it will connect that one. You will need to either check that the CA files, the certificate files, didn't get wrecked or changed. So these all stay the same. But one thing for sure is that the launch options change. So what you have to do is open Process Explorer again, and then grab the new launch options from this, and then fill out accordingly in a new OpenVPN profile. And that should get you going and happy. Um, if you have any questions, please leave a comment. The CA stuff was quite confusing initially because I wasn't sure what goes where, and because it showed up as a self-signing certificate and it wasn't working right, but eventually it just started working. So if you have any issues, do reach out. Mine still are marked as self-sign for the CA and the public and private, and it still works fine. Um, so yeah, that's it.